3 men tied to boogaloo movement plotted to terrorize Las Vegas protests, officials say. Like and subscribe our channel PK News. 3 Nevada men with ties to a loose movement of right-wing extremists advocating the overthrow of the U.S. government have been arrested on terrorism-related charges in what authorities say was a conspiracy to spark violence during recent protests in Las Vegas. They self-identified as part of the boogaloo movement, which U.S. prosecutors said is a term used by extremists to signify coming civil war and/or fall of civilization, according to a complaint filed in U.S. District Court in Las Vegas on Wednesday. Here's what you need to know about the boogaloo movement and the charges filed in Las Vegas. What is boogaloo? The anti-government boogaloo movement is a loose network of gun enthusiasts who often express support for overthrowing the U.S. government. Its name, a reference to a 1984 movie sequel called Breakin' 2, Electric Boogaloo, is a code word for a second civil war. The movement is rooted in online meme culture, but the coronavirus pandemic has become a catalyst for real-world activity. Many boogaloo followers have shown up at COVID-19 lockdown protests armed with rifles and wearing tactical vests over Hawaiian shirts and leis, a nod to the big luau derivation of the movement's name. While some boogaloo promoters insist they aren't genuinely advocating for violence, law enforcement officials say they have foiled bombing and shooting plots by people who have connections to the movement or at least used its terminology. J.J. McNabb, a fellow at George Washington University's program on extremism, said she has been poring over images from the weekend protests and spotted some boogaloo boys in the crowds, carrying high-powered rifles and wearing tactical gear. They want to co-opt protests in order to start their war. They see themselves as being on the side of protesters and that the protesters themselves are useful in causing anarchy, she said. What happened in Las Vegas? Federal prosecutors say the 3 white men with U.S. military experience are accused of conspiring to carry out a plan that began in April in conjunction with protests to reopen businesses closed because of the coronavirus. More recently, they sought to capitalize on protests over the death of George Floyd, a black man who died in Minneapolis after a white officer pressed his knee into his neck for several minutes even after he stopped moving and pleading for air, prosecutors said. The 3 men were arrested Saturday on the way to a protest in downtown Las Vegas after filling gas cans at a parking lot and making Molotov cocktails in glass bottles, according to a copy of the criminal complaint obtained by the Associated Press. People have a right to peacefully protest. These men are agitators and instigators. Their point was to hijack the protests into violence, Nicholas Trutanich, U.S. Attorney in Nevada, told AP. He referred to what he called real and legitimate outrage over Floyd's death. Who were the men charged? Stephen T. Parshall, 35, Andrew T. Lynham Jr., 23, and William L. Loomis, 40, were being held on $1 million bond each in the Clark County Jail Wednesday, according to court records. Lynham is from suburban Henderson and the others are from Las Vegas. The complaint said Lynham is an Army reservist, with Parshall formerly enlisted in the Navy and Loomis formerly enlisted in the Air Force. Each currently faces 2 federal charges: conspiracy to damage and destroy by fire and explosive, and possession of unregistered firearms. In state court, they've been accused of felony conspiracy, terrorism and explosives possession. Trutanich said they'll be prosecuted in both jurisdictions. This type of planning and intent on causing mayhem is terroristic and will not be tolerated, said Steve Wolfson, the district attorney in Las Vegas.